Yeah. Hello. Well, we're back again on Talk Shop, where we tell like it is and let the chips fall where they bloody hell may. And as we say all the time on this program, truth crashed to earth shall rise again. We are done. No matter how hard you crash the truth to the earth, it's like a cork in water, it will rise again. And finally, what time is it, folks? Your answer? Of course, you mean it. It's nation time. It's nation time. Folks, let me say this. When I start talking about nation time and when the change happened, I said, hopefully, we're going to stop doing business as usual. Because it's been how many years of independence now? Well, let me take Nkrumah's component out. Since Nkrumah has been gone, how many years has it been now? And there's always been business as usual. And I'm saying, folks, as citizens, we have to move with a new agenda. We have to move with a new kind of force. So it can't be the same old, same old. I'm telling you. You know, I always say this, and I'll continue to say this. And during the election, those of you who were following me, you can tell that I was saying that we really must have change. And the reason I was talking about the change was because we had sunk so low. And I kept saying that if you go so low and you hit rock bottom, say you hit the lowest part you can go, at that point, there's nowhere else to go but to go up. But I was saying, unless we change direction, we can't go up. We will go lower than we thought, where we thought we were. So, well, great. There was a change, and when the change came, I said, yes, change. It's great that we have change. But I said, change is easy. What is difficult? What is difficult now is how to implement the change. That is where the difficulty lies, though. You can get the change you want, but how do you implement the change that we need in this country? And I'm telling you, and you joke. And it needs all of our efforts to join in to make this work. Otherwise, we'll be clowning around. Now, okay, so we have got the change, and the new president is coming, His Excellency Mahama. He promised that within the first 120 days, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. He's signing a social contract. And part of the social contract is this economic dialogue that he says we should all come together. All of us, the nation, the Trades Congress, the farmers, the market women, everybody, let's get together and do an economic dialogue so that together we decide where we are going as a nation. For me, great. I mean, I'm glad that he's reaching out to everybody to contribute their quota. But for me personally, let me say this. It's not the first time we have come together for a national dialogue. I think in 2014, if I'm right, there was one. It took place at the Senchi Hotel, where we had all the people gathered like we have today, to come together and do a nice little debate and talk about the economic dialogue and everything. It's happened before. And why am I saying this? Because when it has happened before, it means what is happening is not new. The question is, why, when it happened, what exactly took place that it did not actually achieve what it was intended to achieve? We had an economic dialogue at Senchi, where they said that instead of going according to the IMF and World Bank prescriptions, let's all go together, let's all get together and come up with a homegrown approach. Homegrown says something specific to Ghana. We are Ghanaians, we live in Ghana, we know what we are going through. So maybe we've had enough advice from the IMF, from the World Bank. Yeah, they keep up that singers. We've been to the IMF what, like 17 times. So maybe it's about time to go beyond that and think about how we ourselves can fashion a homegrown, dialectic difference, domestication, a homegrown agenda that can take us out of this quagmire. We did it before. And I was reading the epilogue to this economic conference that they're having now, and they stated in the epilogue that it's happened before. But it says what happened was not fully implemented. I don't know what that means. Say, Esida. Yakubida. We have all gotten together as a nation before to talk about the economic development, and there were all these stakeholders and big wigs. This one has some very big gurus. Ismail Yamsen is one of them. He's a guru. KY Amaku. Gurus! Plus others. They weren't in the first one, but I'm saying it has happened before when we had a collection of really great thinkers. However, whatever they met to discuss, the implementation, no. That's why I'm saying that I hope this one does not become another NATO meeting. NATO. NATO. I'm not talking about the NATO alliance. As I said, I'm talking about the alliance that we call no action, talk only. So it is my hope, it is my fervent hope that this one doesn't become a no action, but talk only gathering. You see, it's got to the point where as a nation, we have to find out how we go beyond the talk. Because talk we can talk, and we can break it down, and when we talk, it makes sense. And when we talk, it can inspire you, and you say, okay, this is what is going wrong, we need to do this, we need to do that in the talk. But when it comes to implementation, so no action, talk only. Please, let's go beyond that. And let this dialogue be more action and talk less. Because what we need to do in this country is exactly that. More action, less talk. Yakasa, my goodness. It's been 68 years of independence. What haven't we said? Tell me. What haven't we said? And we are still having dialogues. For me, and please, this is my view, not the view of anybody, and I'm speaking for myself. This is my view. Let's go beyond dialogues. Me, it's the president's opinion that he needs everybody on board to start thinking about this and doing that. We need the market women, we need students, we need old men, we need young men, we need men, women, we need the totality of the population to get together and think. My only observation is this. I think what we need is not like everybody on board per se, but a critical few. A critical few in every organization, in every generation. It takes a critical few to come up with solid decisions. Then the majority can debate the decisions and what they want to do and what not. But Charlie, the point of view of a critical few is so vital. If anybody is going to tell me today, say, they do not know what the problems of Ghana are and we don't know how to fix it, then it's a different thing. But I think after 68 years of independence and being in the Fourth Republic, by now we have been through the mill over and over and over again. So if we can decide that let us not repeat the past things. You cannot do the same thing you used to do but get different results. You are guaranteed to get the same results. So on one hand, I'm saying kudos. You know, Mahama is in his 120 days and he's within his social contract and everything. But I'm saying, let's go beyond that. Dialogue. We have to move. First of all, if you listen to what the finance minister was talking about, we are in a deep mess.
By high interest rates, high energy subsidies, and mounting rigidities. Government expenditure grew faster than GDP over the past 8 years. Non-discretionary spending severely limited the fiscal space due to high wage bill, high energy subsidy, ballooning interest payment, spending indiscipline. National health insurance scheme faces financing shortfalls and also misuse of resources. So the problem with national health insurance is not only with the financing shortfalls, but also with misuse of resources. For example, Agenda 111, where $400 million have been spent in the last 4 years without a single hospital in operation, with about $1.5 billion needed for completion. The amount spent of $400 million could have completed a minimum of 22 district hospitals instead of spreading yourself too thin. Your Excellency, the energy sector in Ghana has become a ticking time bomb, costing about 2% of GDP every year. Only 62% of total energy purchased by ECG is collected. And even out of this 62%, 65% of that amount is used to pay for supplies through the cash water fall mechanism. Unfortunately, 35% of ECG's revenue is used to take care of ECG themselves over things that they don't actually require. Cocoa production has dropped nearly 50% over the past 3 years. The 2023-2024 crop season, Cocoa Board was not able to supply 330,000 tons of cocoa contracts. Revenue losses of $840 million for both Cocoa Board and the Ghanaian farmer as a result of what is happening at Ghana Cocoa Board. For every ton of cocoa delivered this year, in fulfillment of the rollover contract, Ghana Cocoa Board and the Ghanaian farmer would lose $4,000 per ton in revenue. No wonder we are unable to offer the cocoa farmer the right price, because every ton delivered because of the rollover contract, $4,000 has been lost. And so the government is unable to offer enough for the cocoa farmer. And this is what is actually leading to the smuggling of cocoa beans to our neighboring countries, Togo and Ivory Coast.
And so for me, it is time to really switch the gear to overdrive. And this is not the time we gear down low. Say, okay, no. We have to switch to overdrive and drive with crazy precision towards where we want to go, because there's so much to do. Employment. Let me start with youth employment. Every time the Ghana, where the youth don't have employment, the youth are looking for employment, it's become like a standard thing. We're always talking about, the 15, 20% of the youth are not employed. And folks, apart from all jokes, when the youth unemployment is growing larger and larger and larger percentage, trust me, it has national security implications. Frankly, when every time say youth the youth is not getting work, people aren't working, and what we are saying is that this is a threat to our national security. We need to think up how we can get our youth gainfully employed, and that is the challenge. That is the challenge. How do we get our youth gainfully employed? And because that is a challenge, every political party promises that when they come, the youth will get jobs. It's a standard promise. All of them promise the same. We'll create jobs. We'll create 1 million jobs. We'll create this. We'll create.
Unemployment is no air cost. Now, yes, you see, the devil finds work for idle hands. And also now, Obehuna would disem armed robbery in this annual man also a cosro. And Tiaboto is here, you know, say, Sanyame Adom nearby. Yeah, major focus every youth employment.
If with COVID and all of these global problems, the high increase in the cost of living, depreciation, exchange rate, debt levels going up, all of that hit us. Notwithstanding all of that, we've created 2.6 million jobs. Can you imagine what the next 8 years under my presidency will look like? Just think about it. And I want to make providing digital and software skills to hundreds and thousands of youth. This, along with other policies, will create jobs for the youth, including school dropouts.
Because they know how urgent it is to get the youth employed gainfully. If not, like I said, it has national security implications. But folks, let's go beyond the promises, the youth need jobs, the youth need jobs. How do we get to the level where there's job creation in the country? That's the difficult part. And that's what we need to sit down and think and see how we resolve it. Because, and every political party does this, folks, by the way. They come in and they go for their protocol list, and if the Ghana is there, you hear say, they come away, Charlie, we need you to hire all these people, put them in the Ghana, find a place for them. They go to immigration, find a place for them. You go to the police, find a place for them. Ghana airports, Ghana Ports and Authority, all these state operations, the government says, find jobs for them. And then they start absorbing them by pressure. Not that they need them or want them, but there's a pressure from governments. Actually, we have come to power. These are our grassroots people. We have promised them jobs. We have come, we have to deliver. So we find something for them. So under pressure, most of these state organizations, institutions are forced to employ so many people. And what happens is that we fill in all these positions, and it's not merit-based though. It's just the pressure of going to say, more hire. And the funny thing is that then the government will do a state of the nation and boast, oh, we have created 500,000 jobs for the youth, we have created so and so. No, that is not job creation. If you force the youth to get into all these state agencies by force, you haven't created any job. Folks, job creation is this, that we have a very thriving economy. We have a buoyant economy. And so the buoyant economy requires productivity from all these sectors. So you realize that it gets to a certain time, you see that the banks need more help. You see that the architects need more help. Lawyers need more help. These organizations need more help. So all of a sudden, situation vacant. We are hiring. We are doing this. We are doing this. Nature said there is buoyancy in the economic activity of the country. And because of the buoyancy of the economic activity, it is creating jobs. End of discussion. That is how jobs are created. You create economic conditions that are favorable for small business and for the private sector. Because in the absence of the private sector opening up and absorbing people by employing the youth, what happens is that there's no place to absorb the youth. So the only place that the government can send them is to the army, the immigration, police, because you can force people in there. But that is not job creation, folks. That is not job creation. Steady work, let the economy expand. And it's not easy. And yeah, I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm sitting here talking about let the economy expand. This is not a matter of say, okay, I am the head of state or I'm the president. Let there be light like Yakupo Yeno, then there was light. Let the economy expand, then there's the economy expand. No. It takes time. It takes thinking. It takes strategy on how to implement things that will boost the private sector to grow. Think about it too. Think about it. Things that you can put in place that will encourage people in the private sector to expand. When you get the formula for that, trust me, as it expands, they will need more and more people. And when that happens, folks, you have created an avenue for job creation. And that is what you celebrate. You break it down. So this, since I came to power, because of this and that, the banking sector grew by this percentage, and because of that, we had 200,000 people absorbed into the banking sector. Or because of whatever, the legal sector grew by a certain percentage, and it absorbed so and so. Or the film, whatever. This is mathematical precision I'm talking about too. And you say, just holler people and throw them in the army and come and brag that you have hired 1 million people. No! And these things, folks, they don't just happen. No. It takes planning. It takes almost mathematical precision. And it's a long-term thing. So what the government needs to think about is, while this long-term thing is in operation, what are the immediate terms and the short-term things we can put in to start creating some kind of activity for employment? And not the massive idea, but a few here, few there. It's got to be calculated. Folks, it takes time. Talk to countries who have done it, and you realize that it takes time. What we are suffering here in Ghana is this. We have not evolved that sense of efficiency yet. No, we haven't. That's why the private sector is not growing. Because we are still thinking family. We are still thinking friends. So if you realize when, I think it was during the PNDC, Jerry Rawlings came into power, they were under the PNDC. There was a whole period that we went through. The Vestister Implementation Committee was the name of the thing. The Vestister means there were all these state organizations that were from Nkrumah's time that were there, but they were not generating much. They were just costing the nation. There were all these state organizations. Black Star Line, Ghana Airways, the shipping, whatever, the state farms, the this, the that, they were all there, but they were not generating enough revenue. So at that point, Ghana had two choices. Either you re-engineer the thinking and recalibrate the agenda of all these state institutions and put in people who know what they're doing, who understand management, and let them change the course of these state institutions. Or you sell them off. Say, actually, this thing can't work. Let me sell them off to the private sector. And so that's what we did. There were many organizations, there were many factories, there were many state things that we decided to say, Charlie, let's sell them off. And then if we're in the West channel, let us sell them off. Let the government take its hands off these things and give it to the private sector. Incidentally, most of the factories and things that we sold didn't go into the private sector per se, but mostly into the hands of pastors who established chapels. We took a factory that was there, and then he converts it to a church, and then they become a church instead of a factory, right? So when the factory closes down, there are all these people who are unemployed because the churches, the factories, and the places that were manufacturing have all been closed down and sold. And some of them have been converted to churches. So the factories that used to employ people are no longer there. In place of that are churches. So there are no longer jobs for the youth, but they are big churches. And they have great programs. Monday is worship night, Tuesday is worship congregation, Friday is this, Friday is that. So all the youth who have been thrown out of work because they are no longer manufacturing companies, they are no longer industries, they have been replaced with churches. So instead of looking for work, you go to the church and then you pray for work. That is the story of Ghana. I'm summing it up briefly without all the details, but generally that's what I'm talking about. We went through the divestiture, we sold most of these companies, and what we could have done instead of selling the companies is to actually put in people who know and understand business. People who understand the principles of how we can make a manufacturing company work. Because if we don't, you just hire anybody because your government, and what are they doing? They are employing their relatives. Their friends will call, oh, Charlie, me baby, school, when you be manager, manum friend me, like my child is looking for a job, oh, let them call my personal director. Boom, they have a job. So we ended up destroying all the state corporations we had with foolish practices in employment, foolish practices by putting family first and funerals. A whole CEO who's supposed to be having meetings with their ministers, or funeral, and the little money they have, or the kwakobonswa. Things like this crushed us, and we're still doing it. And we don't understand that if we are talking about resetting, all these attitudes must change. The youth must understand this, that we need a change in our attitudes even before anything begins. The mindset, folks, the mindset must change. The mindset that we have now does not fit into the modern world of dynamic progress. I'm sorry. We are still thinking very analog. And we have entered a very digital generation with our analog thinking. So do you see how far back we are? So that's why we're always talking about youth employment. Youth employment is because the private sector is not energized enough to be absorbing the youth. The private sector is not energized enough. Why? Because of so many things that are compounding their progress. So the private sector is not energized enough to absorb the youth. The youth means the employment. The youth. Why would SAFA employ the youth when at the point where there's no dynamic things going on? We don't have any avenues for doing productions. We don't do this. We don't have that. In the midst of that, you lay off people. You don't hire more people. So here's the bottom line. The bottom line is that the private sector, which should have been absorbing the youth, that private sector itself is choked by bogus regulation, by all kinds of things, by inability to really manage effectively. And you'll be surprised, folks. You'll be surprised that if you're going to take it company by company and analyze their performance and everything, you realize that most companies are just companies by name. But in terms of making profits and engaging people and everything, they are zero. They're just by name. It takes a lot. You know, there are some dynamic companies that started, but you know, quickly, you know, let's look at what I'm talking about. When Ghanaians companies start, do you know the person who gave us a start in foam production, foam mattress? So when I come talk about foam mattress, what do we think of? Ash foam, and our latest foam. I think they are both either Lebanese or Indian or something. Ash foam. The person who started the foam business in Ghana, your friend of Boachi America. Watch America. Ono started 4 mattresses in Ghana. Where is his company? You know, we have had Ghanaians who have gone into this, but the same old problems we have, family interruptions, not enough regulation to support them, they fade. Kowus Motors. I don't know, some of you don't know Kowus Motors, but they actually have started assembling Audi cars in Ghana. Kowus Motors. Where are they? Tema that Nkrumah built at one point, we had the Tema Sanyo factory. You know Sanyo that produces TVs and stereos and radios and everything. They were being produced in Tema under Ghana Sanyo. Ghana had its own radio system that had started, and then they were going into electrical things like tape recorders. They were going to what do you call it? Record players. We don't have record players these days, but back in the day, they have an Akasanoma in Tema, Ghanaian owned. Where is it? And the list goes on and on and on and on. Where we had a private sector boom, but we didn't engage the correct people and the correct intelligence and the correct approach we need to keep a private sector vibrant. This one by so and so because it's the uncle to somebody, and then the people that they have hired, they have their niece, their nephew, their brother-in-law, and things. And based on that stupidity, we have collapsed our local indigenous thing because we didn't know or understand that, Charlie, times are changing, let's play straight. But anyway, let me move on. So it is not a surprise that we talk about unemployment. The first reason is this: the private sector that can absorb these youth into areas of employment, the private sector itself is not dynamic. They're going through their problems. And I'm hoping that this economic dialogue, if it doesn't become a NATO thing and becomes more of action, will identify those specific bottlenecks that is crumbling the private sector and release them off those bottlenecks and set them free so that you can unleash the capacity of the private sector to expand. It's only through that you can get job creation. When you force the army to take people, you haven't created any job. But when you spend immigration to take people, you create a job. Job creation needs strategy. All these big names that are part of the economic dialogue, that is much linked to them. Beyond the dialogue, what? What you're going to do a dialogue so that everybody can say some? No! Let a critical view come up with a policy, dynamic. So this is what we have come up with. This is the direction we should be going. You know? I mean, we say the private sector is the engine of growth. Are you cliche? Oh, we need to encourage the private sector. Why? Because it is the engine of growth. What am I saying? The private sector man, particularly, has been able to build his university. Ashesi, beautiful place. It's now the duty of government. At least construct the road that goes there. Construct a world-class road to Ashesi. That is what I'm talking about too. The private-public partnership. The private sector is the engine of growth. Who is providing the fuel for the engine? Abayano. The Abayan has a role. Let me say this, just for an example. Go to Cactus Creek. Beautiful hotel. And go by the road that Odibafus to Cactus Creek. And what you want? Once you get beyond the road and you get to Cactus Creek, it's beautiful. So some private person has put up Cactus Creek. Abayan, but you're quite no. Your lights, no. This is the kind of collaboration we need. And basically, the government should sit down and think and decide, what can I do that will help the private sector to grow? What are the regulations that I need to put in place at the private sector? That is the duty of the government. That is the duty of giving the engine. You see the engine of growth, put some oil in the engine. Fuel that engine. Let that be a partnership. You know? So folks, I'm talking, just imagine the number of people that Ashesi has employed, the administration, the staff, the workers. Just imagine. Imagine what is being employed by Cactus. The waiters, the barkeepers, the bartenders, the housekeeping. Just imagine, multiply that by millions anyway. I'm just giving you 2 examples. But there are so many hotels, there are so many universities. Multiply that. So just think of the amount of huge employment that alone can create if the partnership is working very well. The engine of growth is doing their business, and then those who are supposed to be giving the engine of growth the fuel are also doing their business. You'll be amazed. And that is what is missing in our system. So let the critical few sit down and think, how do we make the systems? And set up an action plan. Say, this is the action plan. An action plan there is very tight. Within the first 3 months, this is what we want to accomplish. By the 6th month, this is what we want to accomplish. By the year, this is what we want to accomplish. By 2 years from now, this is what we want to accomplish. The action plan is measurable, it's specific, it is dynamic, it has certain set goals, and they have time restrictions. So by a certain time, you need to see that kind of progress made. That is where we move from becoming a NATO, no action, all talk. I'm not saying that this is what is happening, but I'm afraid we won't be there. We had a dialogue at Senchi, brilliant people, brilliant suggestions, brilliant argument, brilliant this, brilliant that. Where were the critical few to get together and put a plan in motion so that we can move on from there? Where were they? Then it gets lost in silly bureaucracies and crap. That's why I'm saying, Charlie, we cannot continue to do business as usual, Charlie. Let me wrap up because there's so much to say. So finally, Mr. President, with all respects, let's move Ghana from the NATO alliance. What's the NATO alliance? No action, talk only. Let's move Ghana from there. And I see your vim and vigor, and I trust that you want to be a man of action to make a difference. So let me end on that we need to move from NATO and move into action and get the youth employed. We'll be back again in the next episode. I'm going to dedicate that episode to the great man Kwame Nkrumah, because this is going to be our Independence Day edition. So we'll celebrate Nkrumah in that edition before we continue with our discussion. So folks, until we come together again, KSM signing off and saying, keep hope alive, and whatever you do, Afefe, still Ghana shall rise again.